So how did the idea for Captivate IQ come about? Like, was it a problem that you have personally encountered or something
Yeah.
you just a gap in the market or, how
Yeah.
did you?
Great question. So, it's when I was at BrightRoll, little, and this almost sounds like, hey, Mark, is this a real story? I guarantee you this is 100% true. This is 100% authentic. Literally, the first thing my CFO asked me to do was, I need you to put together the commissions for our sales team. And he gave me some requirements. Like, we got a new ERP. We are on Microsoft Great Plains. We just moved off from QuickBooks. So there's no commissions like file. Everything's gonna be new. And so I'm like, okay, I literally remember this. I'm like, oh, great. This is my first opportunity to like show my stuff out, my boss. Like, and it's like, it was an Excel exercise. So I'm like, oh, dude, I'm going to blow him out of the water with this. And I get the data and I'm like trying to find out like, where do I get the data? So it took me even just like a bit to be like, where does this data come from? And there's this, I get why it's so hard. I wish they gave me actually more coaching in retro, because I literally had to go find everything. This is like literally startup 101. Like, you're on your own.
Yeah.
And
Think or
so so I had to figure out like how these comp plans work. That was kind of weird in itself. And then two, for BrightRoll, our comp plan actually required us to go find two different data sets, one from our CRM and one from our ERP. So that's unique. Usually it's one single source, but actually I had to figure out like, wait a minute, this comp plan requires me to find out gross margin. So I need actually the cost structure to this stuff. This goes back to startup 101. Like, you had to figure this stuff out because no one's explaining to you like how this stuff works. So I got all the data, but I was wrestling with, I literally spent a whole week up until 1 or 2 in the morning, and like my confidence like went through the floor. I was like, this is so easy why is this data so hard? None of this is adding up. Why these unique identifiers I created? Like, there's so many missing pieces of information. And then people are telling me that's not right. Like, meaning like the data's not right. That data's not right. You have to split this. And so I'm like, wait a minute. This is so crazy. Like, I'm doing so much manual entry. And if anyone in finance can appreciate this, the more manual things are, like, that's a major no-no. And so I had this where I'm built to think about consistency and scale. I'm at odds with like, I'm overriding fields that are literally going to go to someone's payout. And so I was sweating for 2 weeks. I remember our CRO was coming by. He's like, Mark, it looks like you got hit by a bus. What's going on today? I didn't want to admit to him that, I don't know if anyone's ever felt this way, but like a project where you're like, wait, this is so embarrassing. I am so unsure of myself right now. And this is the first project I'm going through. And so I had a kind of a mental crisis. Luckily, I got through it, but it was to give people a sense of like what commissions is like. You're grabbing all this data, you're repurposing it for this commissions process. You're building this model in spreadsheets with like summis, all that stuff, based on this cleaned data that you have. And I say clean because you're manipulating this data with like if statements, flags, etc. And then you're inputting all these manual data entries like, what's this person's OTE is this. An OTE meaning on target earnings. So their variable is this, their variable is this. And there's teams. Oh, by the way, this AE has a guarantee because they just joined. And so there's like 30, or I think at the time it was like 30 or 40 people. We're like, what the heck? This was a beast. And so, and then you send these statements out manually. Like, that's counterintuitive too. You're like, wait, I have to hard code this spreadsheet, like build a little statement and send it out. Like, why is this so manual? And you're like, you finish and you're like, what the heck? Is this what it's going to be like working here? Like, I'm going to struggle so hard with every one of these responsibilities. But, luckily it was just commissions.
You're going to have to calculate that once a month when people can get paid.
Yes. And so you're just like, this is insane. This is like, in this day and age, what kept going through my head is like, in this day and age, I can't believe this is so manual.
Yeah.
And so, I tried, so after several quarters later, I finally got this process dialed in. I'm finding ways to automate it more, but it was still very manual. And the best I could ever do was like, okay, like this is going to be like a week-long process of just grinding away. And so I really, I tell people this, even our investors when we were pitching, I hated commissions. I hated it with a passion. And it's actually at one point wanted to quit my job over this responsibility. Like, I was doing really cool stuff, ad hoc projects, strategic projects, budget, board materials, etc. But it's like this it's like this responsibility just keeps coming at you everything else is cool, but there's one thing you really hate. It's like someone telling you like, hey, Mark, I need you to, like someone just vomited over the toilet. Like, I need you to go clean it up. And like, you're having to do this every single time. It never goes away. And
Wow.
the job gets better, but you're like, I can't believe I keep doing this. It doesn't go away. And so I was
Thank
at
you,
one
thank
point
you for the visuals.
I know. So at one point I was asking myself, like, I can't keep doing this. I tried to give it to sales ops. Sales ops wasn't like, it's a really technical nuance. Like, so they couldn't do it. I tried to give it to county and they're like, no, like, we're not doing this. This sucks. So I'm like, like, man, I'm never escaping this. It almost felt like a prison. So now fast forward,
We now
when I was in private,
know the real reason why you left BrightRoll. No, I'm just kidding.
I know, right? Yeah, I know, right? So, funny enough, I actually covered the space briefly when I was in growth equity. I remember even in the interview process, they're like, "Hey, what would you invest in?" And I said, "Look, I'll be honest. Like, there's a space I hate this problem. It's commissions." I remember pitching that, and they're like, "Oh, that's an interesting one." So I tried covering it, and look, the facts are, there's two vendors that were public companies, but everyone didn't like their solution. Otherwise, there is no solution. Everyone just grinds away. And so, to your point, how do we come up with this idea? I literally felt the pain. I lived through this pain. And so when I came back, I did a little bit of traveling and took a break to like clear my mind and think about, what I want to do next. Pretty much from that road trip, which is, a full conversation about how I got into thinking about committing to a startup. I asked myself, what's something I felt as a pain, going back to thematic investing, that I felt like is just underrepresented? And commissions is the number one idea like that I started off with. And so I was very familiar with it. I felt like, there's so painful, hair on fire pain is what I usually hear is, what resonates. And so I was like, it's kind of odd that I'm going to go start a company or like at least explore an idea around something I completely loathe. But it was the one that like, even to this day, it's almost funny hearing the story because like people say start something that you love or you're passionate about. And like, I couldn't, this is like completely opposite that direction. But the thing I asked myself is, well, if it's so painful, what if we can not, like, if it's so painful, it's hair on fire pain, what if we made that a more delightful experience?
Yeah.
And that was what led me to like, hey, there might be something here.
That's such an awesome story, dude. But basically, you experienced the pain yourself on your BrightRoll job. Then you went to the next job. And as part of that job, you also like did deeper due diligence on the space. So you became like even, because I asked, was it a problem you encountered or did you spot a gap in the market? And the answer is actually both, because you experienced the pain and then you spotted that there was a gap in the market after that Carrick. And then so now you're like, okay, I'm going to go and attack this. So that's just like, man, life works in mysterious ways. It's like, 10 years ago when you were just starting out, 15 years ago, whatever, we're old. When you were first starting out your career, you would have never thought that like, today in 2025, you would be building a sales commission software business. But it's like, as you go along and you experience different things and you identify different problems, just like one thing led to another. And then here you are, right? But then the other thing too also is like, I think the biggest difference between a lot of people like you, like entrepreneurs and just like everybody else is all of us encounter problems on like a daily basis. And then
1,000%.
most of us, when we encounter a problem, we just like, okay, we deal with the problem and then we like move on. Life goes on. And the next time the problem pops up again, we'll deal with it again. It's just like no one actually, most people don't think to actually do anything about it. Versus like,
Yes, exactly.
like in the world, they're like, they see a problem and they're like, I'm going to go solve that problem. Right.
Yes. Very well said. I do believe like there are people who naturally pick this up. There are people who learn from experiences to like, influence their destiny. Piggybacking on what we were talking about in the very beginning, talk about opportunity and recognizing opportunity and the difference of a woe is me versus this is an opportunity. This is very much that. Like I could have easily been like, I hate this job and I'm going to go quit and do something else. I didn't do that. Like it was almost this reaction of like, I knew I wanted to go try something in a startup and commit that direction. This was that idea. And I think it was just partly like paying attention, looking at things, just taking a catalog of opportunities and thinking about it versus this defeatist mindset of like, oh, woe is me and my job sucks, my life sucks, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Versus like, oh man, like actually this is what if, what if it looks a little bit different this way? What if I explored it this way? What if this is a problem to worth exploring? And I think that's how people create meaningful traction around opportunities, that frame set or that framework.
Yeah, man, that resonates a lot with me because I mean, like, obviously, like me running Wall Street Mastermind, the same thing. It's like I struggle so much with recruiting. I struggle almost didn't get in finance. And then eventually, when I was thinking about starting a business, I looked at what was available in the market, and it was all like, PDF interview guides, 400 questions, whatever. That is all like DIY stuff, basically, with like no like human touch and no personal support. And I was just like, I'm gonna build the program that I wish we had back when I was struggling through the recruiting process. So it's like a lot of times you're just solving the problem that you've already gone through yourself, right?
Yep,
And that's
100%.
where these ideas come from.